Hello and welcome to Senior Solutions, where we bring you topics of interest for seniors and those who care for them. I'm your host, Mindy Felinton. We're joined today by Jackie Lapidus, the Executive Director for Care Management Associates based in Bethesda, Maryland. She's going to share with us some key information for those who are needing to have solutions for caring for a loved one and offer the opportunities that are available as a care manager to help people going through difficult situations. Welcome, Jackie.
Thank you, Mindy.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Can you tell us about what you do as a care manager?
Sure. You know, people all the time, what on earth is a care manager? So we do a variety of things. What I like to refer to us as the what do we do now industry. So we get calls, they might be urgent calls, they might be a chronic situation where the solutions that families have tried in the past just aren't working anymore. You know, maybe mom's in the hospital. She broke her hip. And I thought she was going to be in the hospital for another week, but now they're telling me I have to find a rehab for her tomorrow. What do I do now? Or, you know, I visited my father, and I'm from California. He's here. I found medications on the floor. He's lost 10 pounds. There wasn't any food in the refrigerator. What do I do now? So there's all kinds of situations in which people end up calling us. We'll do the assessment. We usually go to where the senior is, whether it's home, hospital, rehab, perhaps an assisted living facility, wherever they are that things aren't working.
Share with us a little bit about what that assessment entails. What
Sure.
do you do during that assessment?
What we do, we're really interested in how well things are functioning, how well the person is functioning, how well the system around the person is functioning. So unlike when you go to a neurologist, say, who's going to ask you to count backwards from 100 by threes, which I don't think I can do, but we are interested in how well you're functioning. So it's often very conversational with the senior, like, oh, whose picture is this? You know, well, that's really part of my assessment because I'm looking at memory. And I'm looking at how often the senior turns to the family member for the answers. So I'm asking, you know, can you show me where your kitchen is and show me your bathroom and things like that. So we're really looking at how the person is doing in general.
Okay. Sorry to have cut you off, but I was
it's
curious.
okay.
And then once you've gone out and done the assessment, what's your next step?
Right. So the next step, before that, I would have worked with a family member to sort of generate a problem list from their perspective. What is it that they want us to be looking at? Because we're consultants and we charge by the hour. So, you know, we want to really hone in on the things that they know they want answers to. I may be asking additional questions that they didn't even think about, but at least I want to start with where they are. So we will have gone through a list of questions that they might want me to address. After we do the assessment, that's the time then we sit down and really look at what the options are for providing care. You know, is it moving Dad to an assisted living facility now? Is it moving Dad out to where you live in California? The whole host of options that they might have and some they might not have even thought about.
Tell me some of the concerns that you do hear from children or loved ones that will cause them to contact you.
Well, again, they notice changes in their parents, or they've tried solutions, or their parents are not cooperating, or they're driving and it's not safe to be driving. You know, what do I do? I've tried. You know, I've had families who've taken the car away, and the senior had enough wherewithal to go out and buy another car. So there's a big "what do I do now" kind of situation.
Well, that being said, tell us how you handle those situations, because that is a common concern. I always say about my mother, I will never be the one who takes her car keys away.
Yeah, it's hard, and sometimes physicians can be enlisted to really help in that regard as well. But how it's handled really depends on the senior. It depends on, and by the way, I think my generation that's coming up now, we're going to fight tooth and nail for our car keys. But hopefully I'll have the wherewithal and mother wit to say it's time to stop. But so it really depends on whether the person has dementia. And by dementia, I mean even short-term memory loss really can play a significant role in whether or not it's safe to drive. So if you have somebody that doesn't have memory loss, you can often sit down and have a conversation with them about what their greatest concern is if they stop driving. Well, how will I manage my life? And once you know what the concerns are, you can begin to address those concerns and say, well, it might not be so bad. So, but you first have to elicit what their fears are and worries.
Sure.
So, and then address what the costs might be associated with the solutions and what they're actually going to save by not having a car, not paying for the gas, not paying for the auto insurance. That's without memory loss. With memory loss, unfortunately, people, the link between memory and judgment is inextricable. So if you don't remember that you got lost on the way home from the supermarket last week, then I can remind you, and you might argue with me about that. And finally I might win the argument and say, well, okay, maybe I did get lost. Or, oh, yes, now I remember. And you can reach an agreement. But next week, because of the memory impairment, the agreement has vanished. And you start the conversation all over again. So in a situation like that, you may have to enlist a physician who may say, I don't believe it's safe for you to drive anymore, and you need to have a safe driving evaluation done. There are places that do safe driving evaluations. Or if they've had too many dings in the car, you can call the insurance company and have them basically revoke the insurance. The problem with some of those things is that if the person has enough memory impairment, they're not going to remember that the insurance was revoked. In that case, you really have to get the car away from them. Sometimes families will disable the car, and the person doesn't have enough wherewithal to get it fixed. It really sort of depends on where they are in that dementia process. So, working with a care manager can be helpful in that regard as well.
It's an invaluable assistance that people need.
Yeah.
I really envision that is one of the situations that you deal with quite frequently.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
And I think if I'm correct, that one of the issues that people would have or concerns in giving up the car key is losing independence.
Right.
Nobody wants to do that.
Nobody wants to do that. So you have to get creative, and you have to find ways where they can maintain as much independence as is safe for them, but driving may not be part of it.
Right. Tell me about the type of training that you as a care manager have had.
Sure. There are lots of continuing education courses on working with seniors, but the most important training is experience. So when I started back in 2001, I worked with a senior care manager who then owned the business that I now run. And we went and saw every client together. So we went to every assisted living facility together. So it's really boots on the ground. It's just working with families, lots of families, under the direction of a senior care manager, which is how I train the care managers that now work for me.
And how many do you have who are working with you?
So I have 2 nurses, a social worker, 2 associate care managers who would do things like take people to doctor's appointments or shopping or out to lunch, sort of quality of life issues, pleasure in life. That's one of the ways that seniors are able to maintain independence is by going out with somebody that they enjoy and not driving themselves.
What a great service.
Yeah.
Tell us about the advocacy assistance that you also can provide.
Okay.
And why that's important.
Right. Let's start with a hospital, where probably it's the most apparent that people need advocacy. I don't think anybody, no matter senior or not, should be in an emergency department alone, if that can be avoided. Because one of the things that happens to us, we become a little bit less cognitively able. Even those of us who are still cognitively intact, you become cognitively less able. In an emergency situation, you're not feeling well, you're frightened, you don't know what's going to happen to you, you don't know whether you're going to be admitted to the hospital or not. Well, you multiply that for a senior, especially somebody who's maybe got some dementia, maybe not even coherent at that point. They're unable to speak on their own behalf about what's wrong or what they were like last week. So you have a 90-year-old woman who lands in an emergency room and she's confused. It's very easy for the hospital staff to conclude she has dementia. when in fact she might not. This actually happened to me with my mother. She went to the hospital. My mother did not have dementia, and she went to the hospital completely confused. But what they didn't know is last week she wasn't completely confused, and dementia doesn't come on that way unless she's had a stroke, but that would be something that they'd have to investigate. So it was important for someone, and a care manager can fill that role, as can a friend or a family member, someone to say, this is not who this person was, or it is. But it's important diagnostic information. They may come from a nursing home with either no information or a ream of information that the emergency room doctor is not going to have time to read. Mm-hmm. So you need to be able to provide a succinct history, the current symptoms, and a hospital stay has gotten way more complicated than it used to be. You might, let's say you go to an emergency room, and they send you to a bed in the regular part of the hospital. We all used to assume, that you've been admitted to the hospital. And that may or may not be the case. You actually might be in for observation. And that makes a huge difference in what the next steps after that. So dealing with the physicians in the hospital, let's say you've been admitted to the hospital. Then there are the physician that you've been seeing in the community, chances are, is not going to be seeing you in the hospital. So you're seeing a doctor that you've never seen before. Again, the doctor doesn't have your history. And so it's important for an advocate to be able to speak on the person's behalf or assist the person in speaking on his or her own behalf. I remember I had one client in the hospital, and there was a hospitalist who came around. The hospitalist is seeing pretty much every patient on the floor. He had a list of patients. He knew nothing about any of them except the little snippet that he got in report before. Not the hospital's fault, but it's just the way the system is right now.
Right.
So somebody, some advocate, and again, it could be a geriatric care manager, it could be a friend, it could be a family member, has to be able to interface with the doctors. And then when it comes time for discharge, the same thing holds true. It's like, okay, what happens now? Do you go home? Do you go home with care? Do you need care? What does Medicare cover? What doesn't it cover? So those are the kinds of things that people need help with.
Right, and also having that list of medications is also a critical element, is
essential,
it not?
Right. I think everybody should actually have sort of a one-page, very succinct history. Previous surgeries, who remembers when you get to the hospital and things are chaotic? And have multiple lists of the medications, because you hand one to the emergency medical technician who came in the ambulance, and then you get in the emergency room only to discover that that piece of paper has disappeared. It happens all the time. So have many copies with you.
Right, sort of what I tell people, the clients who I work with, about your living will.
Exactly.
Make sure that it's not just in the safety deposit box,
right,
because nobody's going to be able to get to it when you need it.
Right.
So those are all really important things.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a short break right now, and we're going to come back and talk some more with Jackie Lapidus, the Executive Director at Care Management Associates in Bethesda, about useful information and key information that people really need to know that can help them in caring for a loved one. And we'll be right back.
Hands can do incredible things. Now they can even help save a life with hands-only CPR. If you see an adult suddenly collapse, just call 911, then push hard and fast in the center of the chest until help arrives. Learn more at handsonlycpr.org.
Hello, and welcome back to Senior Solutions, where we discuss topics of interest to seniors and those who care for them. I'm your host, Mindy Felinton, and I'm joined today by Jackie Lapidus, who's sharing with us some of the interesting and key issues that she helps as a care manager to assist people in dealing with difficult situations with their loved ones. And we were talking before the break about hospitalization and some of the key factors in what a care manager is able to help. And we're going to continue on that discussion. And Jackie, thank you again for being here, and we're going to continue discussing about hospitalization and what if you could, are the differences, share with us the differences between what you as a care manager do and a hospital discharge planner when that time comes to have that conversation about where do we go from here.
Right, right. So there are some really wonderful hospital discharge planners who take a great interest in the well-being of the person who's being discharged. But they have really a primary job is to help them leave the hospital when the insurance or Medicare says it's time. So what they can't do is look at the big picture of what is the home like that this person is going back to, or do they need? They might be taking the recommendations, let's say, of the physical therapist who says, you know, I think that this person would benefit from a short stay in a rehab facility. So what the hospital discharge planner would do would hand the family member or the patient a list of facilities to which they might go. But they don't know anything about the quality. The family doesn't know anything about the quality or the location. They can certainly look up the location, but what about the quality? And, you know, so people will say to me, what's the best rehab facility? And my answer to that is almost always the same. It depends. It depends on so many factors. So we can go through those factors and figure out what are the choices. The discharge planner from the hospital is going to say, give me your top 3 choices. And the family member hasn't even had a chance to go and look at them to know whether, how could it be my top choice? I just don't know. So we can slow that process down a little bit so that the family member has time to go out and look at the facility. That maybe we've gone through the list by that time and say, you know, I think you should go and look at this one and go and look at that one. And here's why. You know, first, this one is close to your house. And it's close to the physicians that you've been going to in the community, and et cetera. So really go through the pros and cons of each of the choices so that they can make an informed choice about the next steps. Or if they're going home with home care, how do they go about setting that up? And does Medicare pay for it? Actually, the hospital discharge planner can go through with them what Medicare will and won't cover. Same thing is true of a rehab facility. What does Medicare cover and what doesn't it cover? So that's where the hospital discharge planner can be very helpful. What equipment do they cover? But the bigger picture and then the longer term is something that we can do. You know, we've been to those rehab facilities. My care managers and I are in those facilities all the time. So we know how they're doing currently, have they done historically, what their Medicare rating is. You know, all of that information is available, but the family member has to make a decision in a relatively short amount of time. So we can save a lot of wear and tear.
And what are some of the factors that people are looking at when having you help them? What are the things that you look at in selecting a particular place or places for that family member to look at?
Right. Again, the answer is unfortunately always it depends. You know, let's talk about assisted living facilities for a second. People ask me all the time, as they do with the rehabs, what's the best rehab or what's the best assisted living facility? And that's like asking someone what's the best college for my son to go to, and that depends on a whole host of factors, doesn't it? I mean, it really has to do with what does your son want to study, etc. So let's talk again.
The factors. What are those factors?
So where do you live? Where are all the friends? First, starting with the quality of care. We certainly, no matter how close a facility is to our house, we don't want someone to go there who is not going to get good care.
Right. Well,
so the quality of the care. What's the stability of the staff? How long has the executive director been there? You know, there are many companies that have multiple locations, and they really do quite vary depending on who's running the facility. So how long have they been there? For assisted living, you also want a good match for the person culturally, spiritually, financially, and logistically. You know, can they get out to their doctor? You know, or are they going to be seeing a doctor who comes to the facility? Well, who is that doctor? So these are the kinds of things that people need to know. If they happen to go out to a hospital from that facility, what hospital would they go to?
These are all good
wouldn't
things
necessarily
to know.
know to ask that question. You know, you walk in and it looks beautiful, and that's wonderful, but it's not enough.
Yeah. Well, that was really helpful
You really
for
have to
me.
sort of dig in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these are all things that I would never have thought of. So that was really valuable information. Thank you. Could you describe one of your greatest success stories?
Sure. It's funny how you measure success. I met a man, a bachelor, never married, a number of years ago, who was kind of estranged from his family. He could be quite off-putting in a way. He was kind of a big, blustery character, but I got along with him really well. Let's call him Sam. And I did my assessment. I went alone to meet him. And by the way, though he'd estranged many of his family members, he had a friend, actually his financial advisor, who really stuck with him through the years. And so he was the one that contacted me, and I went and I met Sam, and I said, you know what, Sam, I have to tell you the truth about what I see. He wasn't managing his diabetes well. He wasn't eating well. He just was failing, truly, at being at home. So I said, I really think that you need to move. Either you need to have help come in your home and help you, or you need to move to assisted living. And I actually think you do quite well. So would you agree to go and have a look at some facilities? So we did, and he moved with the support of his friend. And it was a little rocky, the adjustment, because he's had this sort of blustery personality. He started alienating some of the people there. And so he had several hospitalizations, just things that happened to him, and saw him through that. By that time, his family had sort of come back into the picture, which was nice, because he was actually a little bit easier to deal with by that time, because he was getting better care. He was feeling better, healthy. So it was really nice to have the family come back in and be in his life. And eventually he moved to a group home, and where they got his diabetes under control. They were managing his medications. He had a private duty aide, and he actually had adjusted very well to the facility. And Sam loved three things. Sam loved breakfast. He loved his shower. He liked his aide to just really, scrub him and get him clean. And he loved to watch golf. So one day, Sam had his breakfast, and he had his shower, and he sat down to watch Tiger Woods play in the Masters in his big easy chair, and Sam died. And while it was a shock in a way, it was, if I could have scripted his death for him, it would have been that. He had everything he loved in that morning, and he didn't suffer. Through one of the hospitalizations, he was really uncomfortable, and I was hoping that it wouldn't be that for him. And so I guess I consider it a success, though it wasn't in my hands. I got him in the right place, but his death was not in anybody's hands here on Earth, anyway. So,
yes.
So,
well, he had a trifecta.
He did. He did.
That's a wonderful.
So that to me was a great success.
Yes, absolutely. How wonderful for you to have been a part of that.
Right.
I'm sure it's very rewarding for you. Can you share some other stories about where you've been able to help people, either a daughter living in California with
Go
a
back
parent
to
here?
that story, yeah. Well, actually, this was the opposite of that story, which was that we had a mother who was living in Florida, making some poor decisions on her health care, had a care manager down there, but because of the decisions that the mother was making, daughter's here. She was actually in Washington, D.C., but mom is down in Florida. Daughter is going down there all the time, trying to help her mother stay well, but was unable to. Mother was on a lot of medications, and every time she went into the hospital, they took her off all the she's on too many medications. So they changed everything, and she got sicker. So every hospitalization took more out of her. The goal was to move her here, but she needed to be stable enough to move her here, or it wasn't safe. So finally, the care manager, we were able to find a window. Meanwhile, my job up here was to get everything put in place. So we got the medical records here, lined up the doctor, the primary care physician, shared the history with her, had specialists all lined up, had the room. She went into a nursing home, actually. We didn't know whether she'd get well enough to go to assisted living after that. It turns out she stayed right there in the nursing home because she just got really good care there, and it worked out well. But so we had everything in place by the time she arrived. You know, it's not, again, that the daughter couldn't have done that, but she didn't know what she needed to do. So we got everything put in place. Mom came up with the care manager, the medications were all here, and she got great care. And she, until the end of her life, actually, she never went back into the hospital again, because the place that we had her could manage her care in a way that couldn't be managed at home. So that was certainly a situation that took a village. It took coordinating a daughter willing to have us all involved, a little luck in having this window of opportunity where we could actually move her, a care manager who was working very hard and cooperating with me and coordinating the care to get Mom here, and then having her in the right place up here as well.
And I would imagine that there are a lot of situations that you're dealing with when you have children who are out of town or the parent is out of town, because we all know, me being a former Floridian, that there are a lot of people who have parents like myself who are in Florida.
Right.
So it's probably a very common theme that you're dealing with those situations.
It's true, though. A lot of the adult children are here and the parents are here as well, but the adult children have busy lives. They're working. You know, this can become a full-time job at times. So, they might need the assistance of a care manager to sort of fill in the gaps where they can't, where they've got to be taking care of their own. They're in the sandwich generation, where they've got children of their own or adolescents of their own and a senior parent that they're trying to take care of.
So to kind of wrap up with regard to helping family members, what would you say the most compelling reason would be for a family member to work with a care manager?
Well, I think first to get that good assessment about where this person is. And I often feel like I'm the one to look down a road that is not necessarily an easy road to look down. So I want to look at not only what are the options now that fit the needs now, but down the road as well. So to get that, to lay out those options so that the family can make informed decisions, to go through what the costs are and the whole host of factors that go into making an informed decision like that. You know, maybe they decide to do home care. Well, they might need referrals. Like, I open my Rolodex to people. I've got thousands of contacts in there. They might need an elder law attorney. If the documents aren't in order, they might need somebody to put in grab bars quickly, but they have to be put in the right place. So who is the right person to do that? They might need physical therapy. They might need a whole lot of things in order to keep people safely in their homes. So referral.
Great. And if somebody wanted to get in touch with you for more information, how would they get in touch with you, Jackie?
Sure. They can call my office at 301-320-9617. And they can also look at my website. It's got a lot of links to other resources. So they have information on there even if they decide they don't need a care manager right now.
And what is the website?
And that's www.cmacares.com.
Okay. Well, thank you. I think it was really helpful for people and myself to learn about all of the different and invaluable services that you as a care manager can provide to people,
right,
and to really help give them peace of mind. So I want to thank you again for being here today. If you have an idea or a topic you'd like to see on Senior Solutions, please email me at seniorsolutions@gmail.com. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next show.